Welcome to 284 Media's Just for the Record. I am Jhaka Wooding, and today I am joined by District 4 candidate for the Progressive Virgin Islands movement, Mr. Ian Smith. We explore his bid for this general election after a quick break.
Stay tuned for more Just for the Record right after this.
Rashford made it. Manchester United have come from behind to lead.
At home or on the go, watch CCT Live. Download our app and carry your favorite TV shows, news, or live sports anywhere you go. Visit cctbvi.com/live, select your package, and tune in.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. And of course, Mr. Smith, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Jhaka, for having me.
All right, how about you set the stage for us? Walk me through your academic training and your professional career.
Okay, well, I'm an economist by trade. I have a bachelor's degree in economic theory and a master's degree in economic development from the American University in Washington, D.C. in the United States.
And what about your professional career? What does that look like?
Well, my professional career is varied. I was an economist with the government of the Virgin Islands, and then I was recruited by Banco Popular de Puerto Rico as a commercial relationship officer. And I spent 15 years there, culminating in my position as Senior Vice President and Region Manager for the Virgin Islands region.
All right. Now, what has piqued your interest in politics?
Well, it was never my intention to run for politics. Been behind the scenes for probably over 3 decades, being a servant to the people in a number of areas, adding to the socio-economic development of this country. But of late, we've been seeing the same old, and seeing that the public trust in officials as well as international community has been eroded, as well as the country being under a microscope and things in the territory getting harder for the regular man on the street. So I decided to put my skill set to use for the betterment of this country.
All right, let's zone a bit more into that. How do you intend to utilize your skills and your experience to help address these issues?
Okay, there are a number of issues. First of all, in Rotown, the beautification and cleanup of Rotown. It's not looking like a capital. There needs urgent attention in terms of the beautification. I'm a former chairman of the Planning Authority, as well as being a developer in the family business. So I can use that skill set to aid in cleaning up and developing the city. The second area of focus is the infrastructure, roads in Rotown, the sewage system that needs fixing, just to name a few. And in that light, whether we need to borrow money to undertake those investments, I can assist in that. That's where my forte is in terms of banking experience and financial background. Also, agriculture. I'm a farmer as well, and know the plights of the farmer. So in terms of the agricultural sector, I can assist in putting policies and procedures in place that would improve that sector. And finally, the economy, which is my strength. So basically, when you look at the country, it's an autopilot. There are a number of initiatives that we can implement, a number of procedures and policies that we could also look at to improve the economy of the Virgin Islands.
All right, now let's just backtrack a bit to your professional career. I do know you spent some time at the Social Security Board, so
Yes.
just walk me through that, what your role would have been, and projects you would have been involved in during your time there.
Okay. I was chairman of the Social Security Board from 2015, October 2015 until September 2021. And during my time at the Social Security Board, the board and we grew the portfolio, which is your retirement, by 59%. It went from about 530 million to over 840 million during that time. And that was done through strategic investments in alternative investments. We also purchased a large quantity of land for the future of the BVI lenders, and as well as the diversified investment portfolio of the Social Security Board. I was also involved with the rollout of NHI. So that's one of the most rewarding initiatives. Persons speak about NHI, but before NHI, only 30% of the population had access to insurance. But with NHI, you have full coverage of the population. Yes, it needs tweaking, and yes, there are issues, but those can be addressed.
All right. Now, you did mention that NHI needs tweaking. In what areas do you believe that a government that you form a part of would be able to address that in the short term?
Well, there are studies that have been done, and once elected and the government is in place, that's something we'll have to look at the studies and based on those recommendations, implement those recommendations. It would not be a personal feeling as to what I think is needed. It has to be based on the professionals' observation and recommendation to improve the system.
Another important project that would have already begun during your time at Social Security Board, I believe, is the Joes Hill Manor Estate.
Yeah.
All right. There's been a number of concerns about that project, especially the housing being too expensive for residents to afford. What are your views on the execution of this project in that regard?
The execution in terms of what?
In terms of ensuring that the project would fulfill the need for housing in the territory and be available to residents in terms of affordability.
I think there's a misconception because the development was always for affordable housing, not low income. So there are some persons who are thinking low income. So it was more affordable income for residents. There's also a low income program that the government has. So in that line, there were issues in terms of the messaging. Social Security always said affordable, and the government sometimes said low income. To add to that, the concept was where you can have professionals and individuals who had issues in terms of coming up with the deposit as well as their investment in building a house, investment in land, as well as your deposit or your required contribution to build a building. So in that line, you were working with the banks to provide funding and different things. So the concept of it and the execution of it, that's two different things. On the back end of it, I left before it was finalized and conceptualized, so I can't speak to the final product, but I can speak to the concept of it. And in terms of the concept and the outlook as to what it should be and what it could be, it still serves that purpose.
All right, now I have a follow-up question on that, because in a territory where minimum wage is below $7 an hour, what is being considered as affordable housing? What price range would you, or is being considered, I should say, as affordable housing?
I think there isn't a particular price range in terms of that development. That development had certain parameters: 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, condos, standalone houses, and different things based on, in line with the prices that are in the marketplace in the BVI. It's in line with those prices. But you can't look at, say, minimum wage to a development, because what percentage of the persons in the BVI work at minimum wage versus the total labor force? Yes, there are issues. So that's why if you're looking at the minimum wage side, you'll be looking at low income housing, not affordable income housing. And in addition, you can't look at one person. You have to look at, there's a family. Sometimes you have co-borrowers, husband and wife, or sometimes the family members. So even in terms of that development and person saying that, you can have not just one individual, you can have co-borrowers and you could have family and friends borrowing.
All right, but I feel like the situation in the BVI is very different than a lot of Caribbean countries. In a lot of places, we see a situation where even low-income families, they're able to, I should say, live and support themselves, their basic needs off of one breadwinner bringing funds into their household. But in the BVI, it's a situation where it's just normal for people to have 2-3 jobs just to meet their cost of living. So let's talk about cost of living in the BVI a bit, because you did mention that a lot of people aren't working at minimum wage rates, but they're still finding it very expensive to live here. So what are your views on cost of living in the BVI?
Well, in terms of the cost of living, you have to look at the basket of goods that persons consume on a monthly basis. They are basically electricity, rent, food, and entertainment, and different things. So you have to look at which of these items are impacting individuals. You have electricity, where everyone who pays an electricity bill, the fuel variation is basically sometimes the same as your utilization of your electricity. So that's something that a PVIM government would have to look at in terms of how you address the fuel variation, whether there are subsidies or whether in terms of the taxes, you look at reduction of those taxes. In addition, when you look at the other items, food and different things, you'll have to look at the staple of goods and see how incentives to whether local production or importers, how you can offset that as well. But you also have to be mindful that the BVI is part of our international economy, and we don't print our own money, we don't have a central bank, so we are basically impacted by the events of the outer world. The one thing I must say is that I mentioned earlier that the economy is on autopilot. When you get the economy going, money continues to circulate, economic activity goes, supply and demand shifts, and with more demand, you have increase in wages and different things. So you have to get the economy going on totality, and a lot of different things would shift and fall in place.
All right, now let's talk about getting the economy going. I did enjoy that term. So what do you think needs to be done to put things into gear right now for the BVI? Stay tuned for more Just for the Record after these messages.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. My name is Kamal Haynes. Most of you know me from 284 News, but now you get to see me in a different light on my very own show called Health is Wealth. We have Joel Turnbull,
I don't want you to arch your back when you're pulling down.
Milton McLean,
First of all, right, your footwork.
Stephen Payne,
That was a 9 out of 10. I know you got the service down pat.
Steve Augustine,
You did a pretty hard workout today, so
And
perhaps
as you can see, it's actually
you're
impacting
feeling
me.
it.
Alonzo Boynes,
Taekwondo.
Adam Murrows,
I'll speak as if you're an absolute beginner.
I am an absolute.
You are an absolute beginner.
and Seth Graham.
It bites.
It will be.
Get your water, get your fruits and veggies, and experience a wealth of knowledge about getting healthy.
There goes my new car. Guess I'm back on my bike.
Your bike? CG offers new car replacement. Remember my monster truck days? Well, one night I attempted a 50-foot pogo double backflip. I landed it and went to karaoke. It wasn't until afterward that my car got hit by that fisherman. He gave me some great mahi-mahi though. Anyway, they paid fast and got me in a new car. Now call a cab. I want you to meet my alpaca guy.
New car replacement for the first year of ownership. CG Insurance. Good like that.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Now let's talk about getting the economy going. I did enjoy that term. So what do you think needs to be done to put things into gear right now for the BVI?
Okay, first of all, we have to borrow money. You have to look at, we haven't had any major infrastructure projects in a number of years. The sewage system needs updating, the roads, as well as the ports, and you have the airport, the seaport, and with those improvements, you would have increase in visitors to the territory, increased expenditure, and different things. That's just to name a few. You also have to look at the marketing of our tourism product, diversification of our financial services industry, just to name a few. So once you target those areas and you get things going, the BVI would continue to grow.
All right. Now, a bit back to cost of living in the territory. We did mention minimum wage briefly earlier. Do you believe that you would be in favor of raising minimum wage, or that that measure would have any real impact on people's way of living in the BVI?
You have to do a study in terms of the basket of goods. The Central Statistics Unit, which used to be the Development Planning Unit, they take that information on a monthly basis. You have to look at that, see in terms of the consumption. You'll also have to look at the workforce and see the spread, see how many persons are at minimum wage, how many persons are in between. There are a variety of different things. And even outside of that, with supply and demand based on the job market, person might not be at minimum wage. So there might be a case that the minimum wage is $6 or $6.50, and the majority of persons are above that. So you have to look at that and see whether it's something that needs to be adjusted.
All right. Now, let's move on to another topic right now, the COI. Of course, you would be familiar with the document. You did mention it earlier. Do you believe that the findings of the COI are a fair representation of what has been going on in the territory in recent years?
In terms of it being a fair representation, I would not be able to speak to that. You have to, because it's a process that went over a period of time, and they did a number of interviews with a number of civil servants and private individuals, and those are the findings. In terms of our processes and procedures, yes, we need to address a number of the findings. In terms of some of the findings, I don't agree with all of the findings. I think we could have negotiated or debated a number of the findings. I think we only objected to one and accepted the others. But in terms of the fair representation of the operation of the civil service, etc., I think the deputy governor and the government officials would be best suited to say whether that is fair or not, because I'm on the outside looking in at that time.
All right. Now, also another topical issue in the BVI right now, we would have heard the Premier talk about taking the territory to referendum to decide on the issue of same-sex marriage. What are your views on same-sex marriage?
It's not my view. It would be the view of the populace. And I think a referendum is the right platform to get the views of the people, and then from that, you move forward.
All right. Would you be in favor of the establishment of a cannabis industry in the territory?
That too, I think that needs to go to a referendum. But I also have to put this caveat, because while we're looking at what other countries are doing in the world, we are not as strong in terms of our legislation and our enforcement. So if we're looking at that, we also have to strengthen our legislation and our enforcement in certain areas, because countries have it in different sectors, medicinal, recreational, and different things, but those countries are strong in enforcing, and also the populace adheres to those laws. Right now, although we have certain laws in the books, we are not adhering to those laws.
All right. Now, in terms of your bid for this election, of course, you're contesting the District 4 seat.
Yeah.
Why District 4?
District 4 is my home. I grew up in District 4. I went to school in District 4. I played in District 4. We have businesses in District 4. And District 4 is the capital city. And I'm passionate about the city and improving the city. Right now, you have derelict vehicles by the Pear Park. If you come off as a cruise ship visitor, any of 3 directions, you're walking into garbage. You look at the town, it's not representative of a capital city anywhere in the world. You mentioned the Caribbean islands. When I used to travel to the Caribbean islands from a young boy and even now, and countries have passed the BVI in terms of their economic activity, the cleanliness, and everything. And we have to bring back the capital city to our pride and joy in something that we are happy to be part of.
All right. Now, a major issue that people complain about often in the city of Road Town is sewage. People say sometimes they walk out of a building and that's immediately the sense they are hit by. What are your plans to address that?
Well, I mentioned it before. When you look at sewage, there are short-term as well as long-term fixes. I think some of the short-term fixes is to properly staff and supply the water and sewage departments, because sometimes something as simple as a pump or generator causes the problem, a backup, and the sewage to be running on the street. That's number one. The sewage system that's there, that hasn't been updated in years, and probably the remnants of the Bates Hill development back in the 60s. So you'll have to have a proper sewage system designed and implemented. We have done quick fixes on the various contracts with persons not specialized in sewage. So it's something that we have to address head on to have a long-term fix.
All right. Now, should you be elected, that not only places you in the House of Assembly, but also places you in a position where you could become a member of the cabinet. If so, what ministry would you have interest in?
I don't have any aspiration for any ministry at this time. I can, wherever I'm placed, I can contribute significantly to the development of this country. I've contributed in a number of areas within my skill set and outside of my skill set. And I think I bring a diverse background, and I don't have to be a minister to make a significant impact to this territory.
Now that you mentioned that, given the impact that you said you've had in the past decade, it should be in the past 3 decades,
yes.
You mentioned? Yes. Why, or do you believe that you will be more impactful as a member of the House of Assembly, and why do you believe so?
I think I can be more effective in the House of Assembly because now you're at a different level in terms of being a lawmaker and not implementing laws that, say, an individual wants, but laws that benefits the territory. And the plus to that is, given all the experience in the different areas and even the conversations with the electorate and the populace, you have an idea of what they want to see, as well as working in a number of the different organizations, statutory bodies. You have seen where you need to improve on good governance, where you need to do certain things and change the way that we do things. We've been doing a lot of things based on politics and various things surrounding politics within those organizations, which we have to get back to, get away from, so that we can improve the corporate governance structure of various organizations as well as the government.
All right. In the beginning of the interview, you did mention that there is a microscope on the territory right now, and inclusive of that view from the international community, there is a call for greater transparency and good governance in the Virgin Islands. So why should the people of District 4, the people of the territory, trust you to deliver in those areas?
Because I've delivered, if you look at my resume, I've delivered in every position that I've occupied. In terms of banking, the organization that I work for, I say increase the asset base by over 1,000% in 15 years. In terms of Social Security, within 6 years, increase the assets as well, over 60%. In addition to just increasing assets, increase the corporate governance structure, not just talk. We hear a lot about corporate governance being a buzzword, but actually putting those policies and procedures in place, as well as empowering locals in those various organizations as well as in the territory. That's just 2 examples.
All right. Now, you're vying for for District 4, which includes Road Town. One of the major projects to be completed in Road Town recently was the Market Square. And of course, there were a lot of high hopes for what that would become. In terms of what we've seen develop so far, we don't think it has achieved those views yet. What are your views on the Market Square, and in what ways do you think it could be better utilized?
Well, I mentioned it in my speech on Saturday. The design is inadequate because you have farmers having to offload and pick up over 1,000 pounds of produce on a daily basis. The design should probably have storage space for those individuals. A few mornings ago, I watched someone offloading from 5 o'clock in the morning to make sure that their stall was occupied or stocked by a certain time. Also, the design doesn't allow for coverage, similar to what the old market had. So you have a situation where the produce is in the sun for 7 to 8 hours a day. And you also have to look at the environmental health issues with fruits being in the sun. And then you have to look at the reason why some persons who were here before remain at the old location and not move back. So I think it's something you have to look at the project and see how it can be improved and meet the needs of the farmers and other persons.
Now, recently, the PVIM would have expressed their position that farmers need greater assistance, going as far to saying that a PVIM government would look to provide free water for farmers for their crops and their animals.
Yes.
What other areas of assistance do you think need to be explored?
Other areas of assistance, you need to look at non-GMO seeds, also technical assistance in terms of irrigation and different distribution initiatives, so that you could have a wider distribution network within the farmers or even a cooperative where farmers could work together and have a distribution channel to the suppliers, as well as pricing their produce on a competitive nature. Also access to the machinery to plow your property and different things.
All right. Now, in the city of Road Town, of course, there is the traffic issue. For a small population, people are seemingly baffled to see the amount of traffic that is able to build up in the city. What ways do you think that the city could be adjusted, or what measures do you think can be taken to address the traffic issue that, well, outside of the already ongoing shuttle service that's being provided to encourage people to carpool?
Stay tuned for more Just for the Record after these messages.
Today, I am doing cobble treatments with Beyond the Reef. Today, we are doing shark research. So today, we are doing whale research with Beyond the Reef. And wherever I go, I take CCT with me because my life is unlimited.
Yo, everything good there?
Aye. This thing got me one way, daddy.
What do you mean?
Ever since I hook up with this thing, can't eat, I can't sleep. This is the first thing I touch it when I reach home.
What you really? Hey, this thing like you know.
Dad, this thing got me staying home, keeping out of trouble me.
Wow. What your name is?
She? I talking about my CCT life.
Don't worry about missing your favorite series, sports, news, and local programming. Come to CCT today and sign up for CCT Live to access over 80 channels. CCT Live. Bring it home.
1 month free trial turn into 5. 5 months turn into, well, you know I hop. I watching ball. I even watching football. Dad, Nickelodeon, Paw Patrol. I am hooked. hook, I tell you.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us.
Now, in the city of Road Town, of course, there is the traffic issue. For a small population, people are seemingly baffled to see the amount of traffic that is able to build up in the city. What ways do you think that the city could be adjusted, or what measures do you think can be taken to address the traffic issue that, well, outside of the already ongoing shuttle service that's being provided to encourage people to carpool?
A very good question. I think we have to look at the traffic flow and see whether the current alignment or the current direction of the traffic is the best. The traffic was turned around during COVID and it hasn't been tested. Yes, you have cruise ship coming, but when persons move back to the central administration, we have to consider that and how that would impact the town. We also have to create parking so that persons could park. Parking would alleviate a lot of the problems in terms of the traffic flow, and it could also incentivize persons to walk through town. Myself, I park on the lower end of town and walk through town, or if I'm on the upper end, park and walk through town. And we also have to promote the healthy initiatives like walking. Our culture is that we want to drive straight to the location that we're going to. So we have to promote that. I know some offices in Road Town actually have a competition with the number of steps or miles that you walk on a daily basis, and individuals participate in that. But it's something that we have to look. We have to create more green spaces, and in that there were studies that were done for Road Town in terms of having boardwalks and having walking trails so that you could enjoy those at your lunch hour and various times, and not walk in the sun that a lot of people want to avoid. So we have to look at this. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There were studies that were done there right there on the shelf. Look at that, implement some of those, as well as address the parking and the traffic issues.
All right, now let's talk cruise ship tourism. Almost daily we see cruise ships coming into Road Town. So of course, the cruise ship industry is back versus what it would have become during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, throughout the city, let's talk more specifically about Craft Alive. There is a call for measures to be taken to drive tourists into that area. Vendors have complained that tourists seem to not be leaving the Pier Park, or when they actually leave Pier Park, they don't really venture inside of Craft Alive. So do you have any plans to better the situation there for those vendors?
I don't think that statement is 100% accurate, because I was on Wickham Ski this morning and I saw hundreds of persons walking from the cruise pier straight to Craft Alive. And you have also a lot of persons, hundreds, but probably on a daily basis, 1,000, depending on how many ships are in, who probably pass to go to Craft Alive, or pass to go to the ferry to go to Virgin Gorda. I think it has to be made more appealing so that you can attract persons into that area, whether you have entertainment, whether you have signage, and whether you have different things. So the statement that in terms of attracting persons there, you can also have it identify with a QR code or whatever in terms of the mapping of Road Town. There's an app, and because persons know how to find a ferry to get to Virgin Gorda, you can have an amphitheater. I think there was thoughts of having one there as well. There's entertainment at the Pier Park, but you don't hear any entertainment at Craft Alive. So there are a number of different things that you can do. And also probably diversify some of the products that are there. I think a lot of persons have the same products, so you have to look at the diversification of products and services. In the past, you used to have different vendors there, so it's something you have to look at Craft Alive.
All right, just to clarify on the accuracy of the question, of course, it would have just been based on concerns expressed by the vendors who populate the area themselves. All right, also on cruise ship tourism. Throughout the Caribbean, there's been a concern that versus the environmental impact that cruise ship tourism has on the countries and the financial impact in terms of preparing to welcome the cruise ship tourists, the cruise ship tourists don't really bring in as much money as persons who would be staying on the islands for a long period of time. Recently in the House of Assembly, it was suggested that Tortola place a environmental levy to be paid by the cruise ships per passenger coming off the cruise ships. Is this an area that you would have supported?
You have to study it. You can't just say, well, you're going to support an environmental levy. We are in a competitive environment. What are the other islands that we are competing against charging? If they're not charging, if you implement a levy, most likely the cruise ships would not participate include the BVI in the itinerary if the cost of doing business here is higher. You'll have to ensure that your enforcement in terms of the environment. We have the BVI waters, and you'll have to have that discussion with the cruise ship to ensure that there's no dumping in BVI waters and different things, as well as you work with different authorities, the US and other Caribbean islands. We've heard about certain cruise lines getting fined for dumping and waste and different things. So that's something it has to be a holistic approach with the Caribbean and USVI, US and our neighbors in terms of the environment. When you look at the economic benefits of it, I think on my platform I mentioned it, we have heard where some of the cruise lines have said there are not much things to do in the BVI and they're only here for half a day. So you find a lot of ships here are only here for half the day. So you have to create various tours and incentives. One thing I spoke about was Heritage and History Tour and improving those sites in Rotown where you can increase the time that the cruise ships stay in the BVI as well as contribute to sustained economic growth. And that would cause persons to spend more money in the BVI.
All right, now we're coming to the end of our interview, but of course we can't close things off without just asking you plainly, why do you believe that your representation is what the Virgin Islands needs right now?
Well, I'm proven in terms of my experience, and my experience isn't just in the BVI, my experience is regional as well as international. And I'm highly sought after economist and consultant for my expertise, views, insights, and different things. And I think I can use the same skill sets that I utilize in my personal and business life to benefit the territory and improve the soul of the Virgin Islands as well as the socioeconomic conditions of the Virgin Islands.
All right. Thank you so much for your responses and your time today, Mr. Smith. Of course, I do hope Virgin Islanders find this interview beneficial to their experience in the 2023 general election. I'm Jhaka Wooding, and this has been Just for the Record.
Thank you.
Okay. With the whole thing?
No, just here and Jhaka Wooding.
Okay. Okay. I am Jhaka Wooding, and this has been Just for the Record.
Welcome to Just for the Record, a political mini-series where Ronn Grant, Kamal Haynes, and Jhaka Wooding sit down with the territory's present and future leaders contesting in the 2023 elections. We're tired of the same old political talking points, so we're doing something about it. We've reached out to every single candidate to ask them the tough questions. For instance, what's your take on same-sex marriage?
Every single person has the right to private and family life.
Everyone has their choice, everyone has their opinion, everyone has their beliefs.
I leave it for the professionals.
You should have the right to decide. I'm not going to tell you you shouldn't do it or anything. It's not for me to do.
Marijuana.
Once it's a medical marijuana, then I have no issues with it at all.
I would support that.
Medicinal cannabis can help us with many of the ailments that our people right now are suffering from.
We have to make sure that whatever industry that we invest in, that the economics of it makes sense.
The cost of living.
We will look at all avenues and all the possibilities to ensure that we look at how we can manage the cost of living in this territory.
Living in the BVI based on that minimum wage, I think it's $6.50.
how can a family survive?
It's pretty high. Rent prices are pretty high. Can we do something about the prices that within the supermarkets?
And much more, along with the not-so-serious questions as well.
I did drink a lot of guava berry during the Christmas season.
So tune in for the real story on all the territory's candidates running for office, just for the record, starting April 4th, 2023 on all our social media platforms, only on 284 Media.